Welcome to another episode of Respections. I'm your host, Patrick Tomlinson, and today we have a very distinguished guest who has taken the time out to come and share with us. We have Miss Sadie Aarons Campbell, who is the current president of the Jamaica Progressive League. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
Now, by way of introduction, Sadie is, as I said, the president of the Jamaica Progressive League, which is one of the oldest Jamaican organizations in the United States. This trailblazing organization was launched in Harlem, New York, on September 1, 1936, specifically to bring self-government and ultimately independence to Jamaica, but other Caribbean islands. Miss Aarons Campbell is a trailblazer, and her major concern is that even though there is talk of nation building, she has yet to see any serious discussions leading in that direction, and states that under her presidency, that conversation will definitely be brought back to the table. She's deeply committed to her homeland and fellow nationals, and is a consummate advocate for dignity even in death. Sadie grew up in the parish of St. Catherine in Jamaica, and she is a graduate of Oberlin High School in St. Andrew. She migrated to the United States in 1965 and attended Brooklyn College and later New York University, where she earned her degree in journalism. Welcome again, Sadie.
Okay, thank you for having me, and I'm really excited to be here.
Right.
You know, and like I noticed you mentioned, I have journalism major.
Right.
But I am certainly no journalist, but I love to, you know, spread my ideas and carry on, you know.
Right.
I don't know how much it has caught on, but I'm hopeful.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, Sadie, I would like you to tell us a little bit about, you know, what it was like growing up in rural Jamaica at the time.
Exciting, can you believe it?
Sure.
It was times when we had no lights, no television, no running water. You had to go to the rivers to get your water, bring it home and do what you have to do. So we have gone through those stages. It's a remote district called Mount Industry, and I went to school, Oberlin, which was some miles away, Oberlin High School, and that's where I really, you know, it was a boarding school, and meeting people from other communities was really exciting. I was telling my grandkids, you know, about, they were wondering, how come I'm what it's known as an octogenarian, and I'm not walking with a cane, and I'm not stooped over or whatever.
Amazing.
So I used to have to tell them that. I said, I used to have buckets of water on my head, and I would walk straight, and none would spill from that, and we're coming over mountains, okay? So I tell them they need to shape up so they can look like me when they get to my age. But growing up in Mount Industry, in that little area, it was, even though it was remote.
Much like other Caribbean islands, right?
Yes, yes. But it had some class and dignity to it, you know, because we were well-trained, respectful. It was different times, because even when I go back now, I see that there's a difference, and sometimes I'm not pleased. They said it's growth. Like one experience I had was when a relative of mine, I was trying to call my brother, because we would call over the mountains, and if he's not around, and I'd say, where's my brother? I know we had a lot of land, so I'd call and say, and a couple of years ago I went and I was calling, where's my brother? And I'm calling, shouting, and this relative said, no, Auntie Sadie, you don't do that. I said, what do you mean I can't call my brother? He said, no. I said, how do I reach him? Oh, you call him on the phone. I said, phone?
Mm-hmm.
He's in the bushes, he's planting, he's doing what, and I'm going to call him on the phone. And they were truly embarrassed that I was going to stand up and call Dennis. And so you see the changes. And, you know, and some of it is good and some is bad because, like, people don't know what we went through during those days, like when we had no televisions, no telephones. And even here, you know, because I was trying to tell them that telephones came maybe like not so long ago, maybe it's not less than 100 years ago or around then. And, well, when I say less than 100, they say, what are you talking about? But I can say that because I am what they call an octogenarian.
Okay.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about your parents.
Oh, my parents, well, they...
and your siblings.
They had six of us. My mother and father, they had a shop, a store, a little grocery, where they really catered to the complete community. And I tell someone the history. The shop that my parents took over, it was owned by a Mr. Lou. You know who Mr. Lou was. And he left to Kingston after he had made money from that area and opened a supermarket. My father took over that same shop, and he ended up being almost a pauper because he was very kind, spirited. He would never see a child going to school who had no book or slate in those days. He would always offer them, if they had no lunch, he would have, you know. And the story was when they had, like, bananas. You know, bananas was our, really what we survived on,
right.
You know, cultivating bananas, and he had a lot. And the people, when they would say, well, okay, they come to him and they said, well, can I have so-and-so until we get bananas sold? And when they get banana day and they get their money, they'd go to the other shop. Instead of coming to pay him what they owed, they would go to the other shop. So that's how come he got, didn't make any money, but he was happy. And his children, which we all went to school, good schools, and we, you know, we could help them out. So it was really, we look back now, when I look back and say, it was really some good times. Because we were respected, we respected others, and we were well respected. And when we were thinking that we were being, we were poor, or we discovered that we weren't. We were really the cream of the crop, you know. So, and we want to give back to that. But sometimes I'm disappointed because I see people who have maybe the same sorted out at the same level, and they, instead of coming up to be a little better off, they seem to be a little less.
Right.
You know, and you see like the crumbling of this society. So we would try going back and forth to try to uplift the community in some
So you
way.
went to Oberlin, and were there any particular teachers that you remembered or that shaped your life?
Well, yes, because the people who owned that school they were called the Robertsons, so it was the Robertson and Harrisons. And one of the Harrisons taught me in my primary school. That's how come they said, well, this little girl, they thought I was bright. She needs to be moving on to the high school too, so they recommended Oberlin, you know, and I got there. And only that Oberlin was run by the husband of one of those members, you know. So I don't know if you know of a Paul Robertson.
Yes, I do.
Paul Robertson's father was the principal of Oberlin High School.
Okay.
And Paul Robertson and myself went to school in the primary school days. We sat in the same bench. We used the same inkwell. Okay, but he was much younger than I was. And the reason why he sat next to me is because he was a little troublesome. So his auntie, who was the headmistress, would put him to sit next to me as some method of control, you know, and we got along very well together. So Paul was really one of my good,
Closest friends.
And the Harrisons, which were, they were all educators. They came from Portland while we were in St. Catherine. And they came after the 1944 hurricane.
Right.
So they used to joke at it and said the breeze blew them there, you know. So, so they were really very influential in the community and as educators. And I think sometimes we picked up some of those skills from them. And like I say, from them and my parents, we had a good life. And leaving that area and like coming overseas.
So what got you to come to the
Well,
United States?
after finishing high school, you know, I don't know if you know, in those days, you would, after high school, you didn't go immediately to college or training, teachers college. And mostly it was nursing or teaching for girls. I liked neither. So I ended up working for the Ministry of Education. And I was there for a year or so. I got kind of, you know, I was still in my teen years, I think. And so I was restless. I wanted to move. I wanted to, and people were coming over here at that time, coming to what they had. 1964 was like a World's Fair, and everybody was traveling. So I said, I want to go too. And I came.
How did your parents feel about you leaving at such an early age?
Well, they didn't like it. And I remember the stories my grandmother would tell me, you know, if you go, one story in particular, and I said this old lady was something else. She said, if anything happens to you, she said, always keep with you a paper and pencil and a bottle. I said, a bottle? She said, yes. And you could write something on the bottle, in the paper, put it insert it in the bottle, and throw it through the window if you were kidnapped. And we're talking about, this was the 60s.
Right.
And I'm saying, Grandma, what you talking about? You know. So so when I, you know, so I left Jamaica to come during that era of the World's Fair or after, because I think I got there in 65, November 65. And I was only going to be here for a couple of weeks or so, I thought. I landed in a place called Harlem. And my cousin, who I stayed with at that time, she said, I didn't like it because when I looked at the buildings, I said, oh, they looked so, to me, they were horrendous. And I said, no, I can't live here. I'm ready to go. And she said, no, stay. You're going to like it, stay. And she encouraged me to stay. And I stayed. And in those days, it was not as hard to get your documents to, you know, so we worked and I got that. And I went back to Jamaica. And, you know, when I went, my boss had said, before I left, he said, are you going to come back, Sadie? And I said, yes. And he said, you promised. I didn't go back until a year later. And he said, but you said you'd come back before. So, and everybody cracked up, looking at him, and he was saying, but you said you were only going for, you know, and he was an older gentleman and very respectful. And so I stayed, and I decided to, I was active in Harlem.
What was Harlem like at that time, in the 60s?
At that time, it was...
well, you had a number, you had the Johnson administration, you had a number of civil rights.
A number of civil rights. I got involved with the Bobby Kennedy, because remember, John Kennedy had died just a little before that.
A year or two before.
Yes, so I was involved with that.
Was it the Kennedy campaign, John Kennedy?
No,
Kennedy.
Robert Kennedy.
Was it the campaign?
Yes.
Okay.
I was, I got involved with that campaign. And I remember when Martin Luther King was killed around that time also, and it was really very horrendous. And it was all the days with the Black Panthers. You know, it was, you know.
A lot of activity.
Yes, and guess what? Guess who was always involved in all that? I was right there in everything.
You witnessed all of this?
You witnessed getting ready, and I was doing all kinds of things. But I was never really like a member of any set group or whatever. I just was just too busy, you know. But then I got involved really with Bobby Kennedy's group. So when the night, I remember when it came in that he had won the primary in California, I think it was, and they called, and everybody was excited. So they called my house and said, "Well, Kennedy won. So so we're going to have a meeting with him, coming back for the whatever. It was in, I forget the hotel that we were going to be meeting at. So you have to wear red, white, and blue." So my aunt, who was a dressmaker then, she said, "Okay." She had a little piece of material, and I was a little person. She said, "I'll make you a blue skirt and make you whatever." So she said how she was going to get me dressed for that thing. And the same night, while we were merrymaking, she woke me up, and that time it was black and white TV then. And she said, "They killed Kennedy." And I said, "No, Auntie. Remember, Kennedy just won the primary. They killed his brother, John." And she said, "No, your man. I said, "No, my man just won the primary." And then she said, "Wake up, wake up." And the television was upstairs, so it was black and white. And at that time, I don't even think he was dead yet, but we ran up, and when we looked, it was true. So that was kind of a little disillusionment. And there was an organization in Harlem called RU Act. I have to look it up to see where that was now. And there are lots of little Caribbean things. But the league was the Jamaica Progressive League was the going thing then, because it was speaking to independence of Jamaica and another thing. Remember that voting thing, that people couldn't vote in Jamaica unless they had land or whatever. What did you call it? There was, I can't remember the name now. My mother used to talk a lot about that. And they were fighting for that you didn't have to have land to vote. And the league, Jamaica Progressive League, was the one who, even when they had those riots, they would go down and fight to get things together. And there was a president, one of the president or vice president of the league. He was, I don't know if you have a picture of him, Domingo.
W.A. Domingo.
Yes. He went to Jamaica to advocate for such. At that time, you did not have a party like a People's National Party or, there was no such thing. And so they went down there to advocate to fight for the folks. And he was detained there. The governor at the time, I can't remember his name, held him there because he was agitating for Jamaica's independence and whatever, so they held him. At that time, he did not have, he had a green card, not a
he was not a citizen.
Not a citizen. So America disbarred him. And it was the NAACP at the time, because like Jamaica was a vibrant part of the NAACP. So they went down to Jamaica, the NAACP. Can't remember the president's name now, and brought him back.
Hold off one day.
Brought him back
the
to
pictures.
Yeah. Brought him back to the United States, and they agitated, and then independence, came after that. They fought for independence. So they were very active in that fight, for independence. And that's why Jamaica was the first country, I think, that got independence, and then the other
I wanted to talk a little bit about what Harlem was like when you came.
Oh, okay. Well, like I said, it was strange. I didn't like the buildings because they terrified me, because I'd never seen a high-rise building before. So when I looked up at them, I said, how could people live there? And the people were, everything looked strange to me. And I remember I came in, it was in a winter month, and I remember I ran out because the sun was shining, and I ran out one day, without my coat, and everybody stood at the door looking at me. They were laughing. They were, my cousins, because they were whispering, "She's going to turn around soon," you know, because I'm saying, and I'm looking, I say, all these people, why are they there in these long, ugly coats, you know, and I'm walking, you know, and they're looking at me and look away. But then I started to feel, I said, oh, something don't feel right. And I said, oh, it's winter, and they were, so I ran back, and everybody cracked up. They had, the people on the street were friendly, you know, they talked, everybody talked. One incident that I saw was a man laying on the sidewalk, and I looked at him, and you know, I was afraid because I knew he must be hurt. So I saw a cop, and I said, "Look, look, look! There's a man laying here." And the cop looked at me and he said, "Yeah," and he turned around. I said, "Man," and the cop, you know, and I'm saying, "It's strange. Nobody, you know," and but I didn't touch him. I just went along, and then another day I got on the train, and there was a man holding onto the pole in the train, and he was like holding strong, and then he was just going down, and I ran over to
assist him.
Yeah, and my cousin said, "Don't touch him, don't touch him." You know, I didn't know at that time it was drugs, you know, because we don't know those things. So then I started to learn, you know.
You're becoming acclimatized.
Yes,
of what
to say,
was
oh,
happening.
okay, so don't touch, and if you see that, you know, you shouldn't interfere. And even if you see the cops, they're not really paying any attention to that, because they knew what it was. But, you know, for us it was strange. And another thing that, so the streets were clean. It wasn't like how you go to Harlem and you see dirt. And no, the people picked up after them. And then I remember one day I went to a store, and whatever the item was, like it said $7.99 or $8.99, whatever it was, and I gave $10, and they gave me back the change. When, you know, I said, I was counting, I said, but the change is wrong. You know, you're supposed to give me back $1 and so much. And they looked at me, and I said, yes. So I'm saying, oh, they knew that I was, you know, a visitor, so I didn't know what the money was. But I knew, you know, and I was fussing at them, and the man gave me back whatever I was asking back, and he told me, don't you ever come back to this store. When I found out, I went home. They were charging tax, and I had no idea that there was such a thing as tax.
Tax, right.
So I went home to my cousin. I said, why didn't you tell me? Because I'm there arguing with, they could have arrested me, because I really stood up and I said, you're trying to cheat me because you think I don't know. You know, so those were things that you learned, you know, that you should, the system, you understand, didn't understand, you know, because when you come, they're busy working. They can't tell you everything. Well, there's such a thing as tax, you know. I didn't know that. So those were some of the early experiences
that you had.
Yes. And then we started to...
Were there other major immigrant groups coming in at the time in Harlem?
Well, at that time, if they were from other islands, it's like they were all one, because it was not like an influx or over, you know. So everybody was, were friendly, you know, because like I know with the Jamaica Progressive League, people who would come to those functions, they were from the other islands. So all of us were just one and the same, you know. I didn't know the difference. I just know, oh, this one is from Trinidad. Oh, yeah, and you're glad you have, because like in Jamaica, we had everybody. And, you know, and everybody was marrying everybody else and going, you know, back to, you know, things. So there was no real difference there. Then when I started to work now, and I met people who were the Americans now, then they were a little different, because they had a different language or whatever, and they were very friendly, you know, and because would be happy to see or to talk, to hear your accent, and to tease you, you know. And when the young men would try to make a pass, most times we didn't know what they were doing, so we, you know, get rid of them. And I got a couple of them in trouble once. Not knowing, you know, because they asked me certain questions, and I gave them, like, young man trying to be friendly, and he asked me about perfume or whatever. I had no idea that he was trying to buy me, or he would like to buy me a perfume. So I told him, I said, we don't use perfume, you know, in Jamaica. And he said, well, what do you use? And I jokingly say, well, we go to the trees, and we get the trees, and we juice it, whatever, and we rub it over our bodies.
Yeah, the fragrance.
And he went and he told somebody, because it wasn't true, because I said, well, he must be an idiot if he believes that. And he went and he told someone else, told a Jamaican friend, and they almost beat him up.
Whoa.
And he came to me and he said, why did you tell me that? I said, well, you asked me a stupid question. Of course we have perfume. And you know, and another thing they asked, do you have cars in Jamaica? And I say, no, we ride donkeys. And he would go and say, oh, I didn't know you didn't have cars in Jamaica. And he'd go to a Jamaican, and they would try. And then, but I was teasing, but at that time I didn't know that I was comedic, you know. So so we had a little fun, and then they got to know that, you know, well, we do have some of the same things here, you know. And, you know, so
Well, Ms. Sadie, we're almost up
Yes,
to the
yes,
time
yes,
of our
yes,
first
yes.
segment. So I just wanted to find out if you could take a minute to just wrap up and give us your closing thoughts for this segment.
Well, like, you know, I am pleased to really say, in the beginning, when we came here in the 60s, it was completely different from it is now.
Right.
And some of it was good, and some was bad. I'm looking at, you know, I have some disappointment too now, though, to see some of the changes, particularly as it exists now in our communities. You know, because, and I'm trying to tell people, some of the carnage, some of the things we see on the streets, it's not, it's dysfunctional. It's not the norm. But because we are so voiceless, these things are happening. So I'm hopeful that when we speak, we can get the word out to others who are of like mind, but lack the time, or, you know, don't know what they're to do, because some people tell, you know, so.
So we are almost at time,
yes,
so I want to thank you for this coming, Ms. Sadie. And ask you to stay back for the second segment, which we'll go more into the Jamaica Progressive League and your work there. Thank you so much for coming.
You're very welcome, sir, and I'm very pleased, because I think that, you know, what I'm saying needs to be told, and we'll have the opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay, welcome.